Welcome to Prodigy Sportive Adaptations. P.S.A. podcast is an unconventional podcast that challenges the audience to think outside the box using real-life experiences, clever narratives, original quotes, and the creative use of satire in order to break the audience free from negative paradigms and push them towards their own personal growth. This is by no means a method to condemn or bash the audience, but instead encourage and showcase a different perspective that might not have been seen before. P.S.A. is designed to showcase to the listeners that the power of the mind is not a joke, and if a person can learn to control their mind and their thoughts, they will ultimately control their life. This podcast serves as a means of entertainment and educational purposes only, and not a replacement for therapy or any other type of professional help that the audience may desire. All right, y'all, what's going on, y'all? We back at it again with another Hot Fire Zoom episode. Keeping them coming like hotcakes at McDonald's, because they keep them coming like that. All right. So today's episode is titled The Little Podcaster That Could. The meme reads, you have to stay consistent at whatever it is that you do. It can take 15 years to be an overnight success. Inspiration comes from a quote by my guest that he made, which I'm going to get into that in a minute. And then also a song by Guapdad for 1,000. I'm not sure if a lot of y'all know who he is, but he's getting on out there. He's one of my favorite rappers, low-key, like Instagrammer, that kind of thing. Not favorite, you know what I mean, like Instagrammer. He hilarious. And he got a song called Little Scammer That Could. So because we both podcasters, me and my guest, I was like, I can finesse something and kind of get something funny going. That's pretty cool. So let's go ahead and introduce my guest. State your name, who you are, where you from.
Let's get it, man. I'm Shawn Anthony, man. First off, man, I like hotcakes. People sleep on hotcakes. Guapdad, man. That's what's up, man. That's the scamming.
Yeah, the little scammer that could.
He had a couple songs that was kind of tough though back then.
No, he got a few songs. I be like jamming him hard. Like I be putting my friends on. I be like, y'all gotta listen to this man.
Yeah, he got a couple I like.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. Glad to be on your show, man. I'm a top 100 business podcast host. You see me everywhere, interviewing huge names. Matthew Knowles, Ed Milet, Seth Godin, Grant Cardone. I mean, the list goes on, man. And I'm just glad to be here today and be rocking it out with you.
All right, appreciate you. Okay, so I got a few questions for you. So when you hear the word consistent, what comes to your mind? Like anything, there's no right or wrong answer.
Keep going. Just 2 words. Just keep going. Keep going. Keep going. You can say keep showing up, whatever it is for you. Just keep pushing at it.
All right, cool. Now, when you hear the word persistent, what comes to your mind?
Relentless, man. It's like nonstop. You just determined to make it happen.
Okay, cool. I like it. All right, so I went ahead and defined consistent. It says acting or done in the same way over time, especially so as to be fair or accurate. And then I went ahead and defined persistent, which said continuing firmly on an obstinately in a course of action in spite of difficulty or opposition. Okay, so as you we kind of revealed, like, persistent is when you're going through, you constantly getting like a pushback, but you constantly saying like, nah, I'm gonna keep doing it. And then consistent is kind of the same, similar thing. Like you still going through, you don't care about what's trying to hold you back. If, this tab holding me back, I'm gonna keep pushing through till I get to where I need to go, get to what I need to get, what I need, whatever it is. Kind of the whole, I guess, by any means kind of mindset. So tell us, how did you get here today? How did you get to be the hot podcaster that you are, the businessman, getting all these hot interviews with these celebrities? Like how did you get there?
Yeah, man, for me, man, like, when you look at life, you always have to go back to your childhood, right? Like, what were you doing as a kid, man? And for me, man, when I was 14, my life was unlike a lot of people's life. My brother went off to college. He went to North Carolina A&T, which was called like the biggest HBCU of all the time. People like to call it GHO. And so he goes off to North Carolina A&T, and he becomes a well-known party promoter. So at 14, I'm in the club. So I'm in the club with like hip-hop artists like, Rick Ross, Young Jeezy. At 14, I'm standing on couches, VIP. And I learned a lot from them. So I took that mentality as a 14-year-old, and I went back to my hometown, Rocky Mount, North Carolina. So I go back to Rocky Mount, North Carolina, and I start throwing parties, man. So imagine a 14-year-old, the first party I ever threw were for a high school graduation. So I was throwing a party for 18-year-olds, and I was 14.
Right.
I walked away out of that, man. I walked away out of that room, walked away out of that building with $6,000. And my whole life changed at that moment. So at that moment, I knew, yo, I could put people together. I can create parties. I can make things vibe. I had networking skills, man. And
Real.
I took that and I was like, you know what? I want to go to school like everybody else, right? But I did not care about going to school for education. I was going to school to chase a bag, being all the way honest with you. So I picked another HBCU. And I picked Winston-Salem State University,
Okay.
whereas where I graduated from, which is very close to A&T. So I was
Right.
still near my brother. And I just excelled, man. I excelled in parties, nightlife, promotions, throwing some of the biggest parties with some of the best artists you can imagine. And everybody graduated. People didn't tell me that part. So like everybody graduated. So you go through college and I saw these people move on and I had to move on. So I took all my skills and I went corporate, man. So I went corporate. I was running corporate. I was promoted 6 times in 4 years. After doing that, you know what I'm saying, I noticed that everyone else was struggling. And that's what
Right.
led me because as I was traveling through all these promotions, I stumbled across the podcast app. And as I stumbled across the podcast app, started listening, to all these mega guys who are now on my show, and I realized I could do that, and they didn't look like me, and there was an audience for me to reach, and that's what got me to launching Schools Over Now What.
Right. Okay. Cool. I like that. So that's the thing people got to understand. Like, it's a networking thing, and it's just all about putting yourself out there. People, I feel like, are afraid to put themselves out there. And even with me, like, I remember when I was in high school, I remember I used to just, that's when Facebook was hot. And I don't know if you knew this, but I went to Texas Southern. So that's where I graduated from.
Mm-hmm.
So another HBCU. So basically, the thing was, I noticed how, like, especially going to HBCU, people have to. They one thing they would tell you is that HBCUs are all about networking. They don't teach you nothing else. HBCUs teach you how to network. They teach you how to make connections, even if it's just somebody signing you in class. Like, hey, can you sign me in? You just get cool. People just talk to people, and I feel like sometimes people are too scared to just talk. Like, I mean, if they
Mm-hmm.
want to ask thank with you, they ask thank, but at least, but it's gonna be somebody that reach out to you or get back with you or whatever it is. So okay, so cool. Now I went ahead and now because you already kind of went over that you basically described your way of being consistent and persistent is how you did what you did. You gave us a little bit of your life story. So now, can you tell me 5 celebrities that you'd like to work with?
Jay-Z, Dame Dash, Robert Smith, Oprah, and then I think the last one would probably be Diddy.
Did he? There'll be some conversations there. You leave that conversation with some money or something, but they'll put some money in your pocket just from talking to you. Some of them.
Yeah, facts.
Okay, so now why do you think, before I get into my kind of my stats for the day, why do you think people struggle with being consistent?
I think people, uh, I think people struggle with being consistent because they want to see instant gratification.
Mm-hmm.
I think that sums it up. I mean, I think people want to see instant results, and not realizing that people that are showing you results is because they have been consistent in doing whatever it is that they're doing. That's why they struggle at it.
Okay. All right. So I went ahead and got some facts. So this is coming from according to Spiritual Living for Busy People. It says that is not to say that the outcome is not important, but if we become fixated on the outcome, it will work against us, no matter how compelling. Why is that? Because any outcome compelling enough to excite you is probably one that won't be achieved without hard work and sacrifice over a long period of time. Without certain processes in place to help us, most of us aren't able to maintain the effort needed to accomplish these outcomes. So based off that, just picking apart at it, we always hear hard work, we always hear dedication. We know that. And I, like you said, people want that instant gratification. They feel like, okay, if this don't happen right now, I'm gonna just throw it away. So for me, I definitely know it's why my podcast is going to continue to grow. And as I see people like you, whose yours is great, and other people's, and I'll get into my take on one of the episodes recently that I liked in a minute. But just seeing that, their first podcast, their first song is not going to be hot fire. And I feel like people are they like scared to get that, judgment by people because they feel like, oh man, everybody finna clown my song. They finna clown it. I don't care. My first episode was trash. I lost my voice. It was a lot. But compared to now, it looked like, even though I'm not, but I'd be looking like an expert compared to that. So you have any advice for anybody who's starting out, but they may be kind of like fearful, I guess?
Yeah, man, it's all about, and I learned this by reading a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's all about, man, it's really about taking action. So like
Hmm.
you know how you say your first episode was like, oh, I lost my voice, but same thing, bro. You took action. So a
Right.
lot of people right now are just taking motion. So you're saying, okay, Shawn, what is motion? Motion is you sitting down, writing down, hey, I'm going to do this, and this is how it's going to look. You
Right.
just talking about it. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
I think action is the key there, man. And I think that's how you get over the fear. Sometimes you just got to start doing.
Right. Okay, so now tell us. All right, so you have a hot podcast. Tell us more about Schools Over Now What. Take me, like, take the people, myself and the people, we on the journey. Like, we want to say we were shadowing you for the day. Like, how do you go about the process? How do you get as far as your ideas? How do you go about guests? Like, how do you go about it?
Yeah, man. Good question, man. It's two answers to that, right? So like,
Okay.
there's a pre-COVID answer, and there's a COVID, there's an after COVID answer, right? So
Okay.
the pre-COVID answer, what I would tell you if we were doing this interview last year, I would tell you what Schools Over Now what is about. It's about bringing people on the show each and every single week that have either have answered the question we've all asked ourselves at some point, and that Schools Over Now. What do we do, right? So
Right.
there got to be some of the people who are most successful in their journey as far as entrepreneurship, as far as a career, business, or some level of celebrity.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
that's what Schools Over Now what. And if you don't get one of those things, you're gonna get an inspiring message. That's gonna help you continue on throughout whatever type of day you're having. So pre-COVID, what we'll do when it comes to guests is that once we started to obtain all these crazy names, it's
Mm-hmm.
like a domino effect. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
because a lot of people, no matter how high up you get, a lot of people know each other. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like,
Yeah. That's
it's such
true.
a
That's true.
small circle, man. It's crazy how small it is. So at that point, the pitch becomes a lot easier. It's easy for me to get you to hop on my show, and I've had five of your friends on. You know what I'm saying? So the
Yeah.
pitch is a little bit different. And pre-COVID, we'll travel to you. You know what I'm saying? So pre-COVID, you let us know where you're at. We're coming to you. We're in Laguna Beach with Ed Milet. We're in Miami with Grant Cardone. We in LA with Dave Metzler. So pre-COVID, we coming to you. I think now the adjustment is that we're doing things like me and you're doing right now, right? We're all virtual, so it's like, all right, let's Zoom or let's Skype or let's utilize those tools, and still give the people what they want to see, but also provide value for them. So that's how it is now, after COVID. And of course, once we, get this, this out the way, it's gonna be a lot different.
Yeah, and I thank you. I think it's interesting because of how it's always, and I said it before on my show, like it's a blessing and everything, and like with the whole Zoom thing that became popular because of COVID, it's making it so much easier to connect with people, versus how we, back at how it was back then or a few months ago, like it was years ago, where you had to, okay, I'm gonna link up with you, I gotta fly to you, or people was just
Yeah.
trying to do like phone call interviews, and it would sound, kind of like a radio show, which was cool too. But it's good to see now, like we can do stuff like this, and nobody got to catch a flight, nobody got to, and it's interesting to see how it's going to be when things do well, when the disease dies down. And will people still Zoom? Is that just a new market people that created, or what? So it's
Yeah,
all
man.
about, right, it's all about money. So with the podcast, I think you kind of answered it, but maybe a few more, like a little bit more detail, I guess. Why the podcast and why nothing else? Like maybe why don't you want to do the YouTube route? Why don't you want to do, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think you gotta master something before you take over everything, right? Like your
Okay.
energy, right? Like if you put all your energy in multiple places, you know what I'm saying? You might burn out, you know what I'm saying? So we trickle a little bit into the YouTube. So people want to listen to it on YouTube. It is available on YouTube. Primary audience right now is on audio, but we still got 100 plus subscribers on YouTube, of course.
Mhm.
But we are really, really focused on that audio, right? Like, and it takes time, and I think that's what it's really about. The cool thing about podcasts, once you master anything, it could be mastering, running your own business. It opens doors for other things. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So we got a lot of brand deals. We got a lot of sponsorships. We just did a sponsorship and a brand deal with Fuel by Culture. So now we're with Fuel by Culture. We'll go live, on Wednesdays on their network, and then after COVID, it's a wrap. You know what I'm saying? Because if we look at the brands and the people they are related with, it's pretty much a wrap. It's over.
Right. No, definitely. So, as somebody who's a podcaster myself, titled a little podcaster that could, and that's getting up there, but still not all the way there. And for anybody else that's want to start one, what would be some suggestions for people who are at that point of trying to get more sponsorship deals, and maybe didn't have one or two here and there, but really want to get to the point where they beating down my door, like, look, we need you versus you reaching out to them. So, what would be any suggestions?
I mean, you hit the nail on the head earlier, man. You gotta be consistent and consistent. Maybe you start showing up in a different way, right? Show up in a different way. It's gonna let other people get exposure to you, and maybe that play is maybe it's a space you've already been on,
Mm-hmm.
but you haven't showed people multiple ways you can do it. Like for example, we're talking Instagram. Like the deal I got with Fuel Pop Culture, I just started going live and did coronavirus is now what did a series that happened every single Monday for 7 weeks straight.
Mm-hmm.
So for 7 weeks straight, I'm popping up, and then for 7 weeks straight, it's more people coming into it. And next thing you know, that person who's going to offer you that deal, they're in there, they're watching you, right? So that's what it comes down to, right? And if you're extrovert, introvert, whatever it is, utilize a new feature that just came out. Instagram just introduced Reels, and dude, I put a reel up the other day, and that thing is popping. So
Okay,
it's
I saw
how
that.
can you continue? You know what I'm saying? Like, how can you continue to do stuff? Step out of the box and utilize platforms you already got. It's not always about, let me play in this, let me play in that. Let's see where we still got opportunity and where we're at so we can dominate.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's funny because, Instagram they basically took over TikTok in the sense they didn't Instagram had created videos, they kind of wiped Snapchat out, and then they didn't send TikTok finna be banned. They didn't kind of jumped on, oh, we gonna do what they was doing. So it's just kind of taking something that's already been done, adding your own little twist to it. And it's funny that you said think outside the box because that's like in my podcast, because it's mental health based. But of course, most people don't realize mental health is not just anxiety and depression. It's the way you think about things and expanding people's, thought processes. So even if you don't agree, like they might not agree with what you're saying or what I'm saying, but you can say, okay, I see where you're coming from, and then still be able to incorporate it in some way. And if they say it don't work for me, cool, but at least you was open to it versus shutting it out. So that's my main goal is just getting people to think outside of their normal box. Like most people stay here, and even with the students that I teach, I want them to be critical thinkers because you thinking outside the box, thinking inside the box is not gonna get you nowhere in this world, unfortunately. So it's gonna get you
Definitely
somewhere,
not.
but it ain't gonna get you, you know,
It gets you in a cubicle.
exactly. And who got time for that? Okay, so what's my next question? You answered the other one, so we ain't gonna do that one. Do you have any tips for anybody that maybe struggles with self-doubt?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think there's too many people ever asked me that. When it comes to self doubt, I think a lot of times self doubt comes from the comparison game. So I think you got to ask yourself, where is my self doubt coming from? Am I doubting myself? Because I'm watching, Izzy Baker. Am I doubting myself because I'm watching Shawn? Right? I think the self doubt comes from too much consumption of
Mhm.
something. For me, I'm inspired. If you're doing something I ain't doing, yo, how you do that? You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
how we figure this out?
yeah.
That's what it comes down to, right? I think self-doubt is literally just putting a limitation on your life based off of watching what somebody else's life is without them broadcasting the L's they've taken. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? That's what it comes down to. So if you want to get out of the self-doubt, stop consuming so much and start producing and start taking action.
Okay, yeah, good. I like that. What and this is the last question before we move on to the next part. So, what do you say the best motivation comes from, as far as where can you say your motivation comes from, your inspiration comes from? Because maybe, I know mine comes from definitely God for it, without a doubt. So, and I definitely, me personally, like I tell people all the time, you ever come to my house and see my DVR, I live by myself. You'll think a whole family live here. Like I literally watch so many different things and I get inspiration from all of them and it kind of just, morph into one. So what would you say your best motivation is, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think it's my last name. It's not my first name. And I think about my family. I think about my legacy. I think about my daughter. I got a wife. I got kids. So I think about that. But I think also too. I think everyone needs motivational moments,
Mm-hmm.
right? So sometimes motivational moments ain't you always thinking about them. So for me, the motivational moment, it's rap lyrics, man. I say it to this day,
Mm-hmm.
like it's literally rap lyrics. I can say a rap lyric in my head right now, and this whole interview changes. So it's those type of things, like if I'm in a good spot, like right now I'm in a very good spot financially. So that rap lyric today might be "Thank God I ain't been broken a while" by Lil Baby. You know what I mean? So that's what it comes down to, man. That's for me. That's the motivation.
Okay, cool. All right, I like it. For me, I think, like I said, I told you my motivation come, but I ain't gonna lie, I do be some lines I be feeling. I hear them songs like I be feeling powerful. Like I turn on Rick Ross, like you will feel like the
Oh
richest,
God.
you will feel like the richest person in the room. Can't nobody tell you
Oh
nothing.
man,
You
did you
could,
see that verses?
huh?
Did you see the verses he did with 2 Chainz?
Okay, let's talk about that. So I just was going in like Rick Ross because see, I like 2 Chainz too,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah,
I've
yeah.
been a Rick Ross fan since The Boss in '06.
I met both of them personally. Yeah, I met both of them. Yeah, they like that.
Yeah, I feel like Rick. So they like how they be rapping about. 'Cause, some of these rappers don't be living that.
Yeah, but I think the verses for me the crazy part though is like look at the theatrics that Rose was doing to the
Yeah,
point where 2 Chainz is like, yeah, you got it. Like the
right.
theatrics was crazy. He branded himself the whole time. He was getting the massages to the point where he was playing certain songs like "We're Gonna Be Rich Forever." And 2 Chainz just start posing like, man, I feel like I'm supposed to be in a photo shoot. That's that catalog right there, man. It's just how you bring yourself. That was a whole branding strategy right there. Else is nuts.
No, for real. That's the thing, and that's another thing too. People's branding, they have to learn what works for them, and you can't copy what somebody else do because it's what works for
Nah.
them ain't gonna work for you. And that's the unfortunate thing. But when you consistent with what you're doing, even if you're only getting 3 people, 4 people, eventually that's gonna turn to 3, 4,000. So that's the motivation people may need. And then most people, I don't know if you were aware, I did a podcast series a few weeks ago, and I marketed like a mixtape. So I had a cover art done, intro. I had guests on there that was like my features, like, and I'll send it to you when we get off. It was dope, and it got me so much notice just from doing that. So you got to do something that ain't nobody never seen before.
That's pretty cool, man.
So, all right. So I got this. It says, why do people struggle with being consistent and persistent? And this comes from extraordinaryroutines.com. It says to uncover how to overcome fear, procrastination, and various hurdles that get in the way of starting and sustaining projects. He says, I turned into several creators who have had daily, weekly, monthly projects to gather insight and advice on building consistency in their own work. So I got a few of them. It's like it was a lot of them. I picked like 6, so I'll kind of give the little title, give it like a little description, and then we'll just kind of go from there. So the first one says, listen to the wake up call. It says, often a wake up call can give us the push we need to reevaluate how we spend time at the type of work that we pursue. So everybody's wake up call is different. Maybe your wake up call was you got fired from your job. Maybe your wake up call was somebody busting in your room saying, hey, this is what you need to do. I'll never forget when 2017, it was after I graduated. I wish I would have known about your podcast then, and I was kind of in that state of school out, graduated. What am I doing now? And I remember I got a phone call on the back phone from my daddy. He called me and was like, yo, you got all this creative ideas, vision. You should do something like this. And then P.S.A originally started off as a blog, and then now it was then spurred into this. So, do you remember what your wake up call was? Your wake up call when you was in the club at 14?
Ah, man, I was lit. I was lighting that up. Nah, that wasn't the wake up call. I think my wake up call, man, is when the club days was over. I was killing corporate, bro. I was killing, and I was offered a job that I took. And at the time, I'm in North Carolina. The job was right about 6 hours away. That means 3 hours there, and 3 hours back for an insane amount of money that was to me at the time. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're scratching 6 figures, like you knocking on it at that age, in your 20s, it's like, you know what I'm saying? So my wake up call was taking that job while traveling back and forth from there to my family. My wife at the time was pregnant, so we didn't even have our daughter yet. So it was more thinking about, yo, am I really about to take this job for
Right,
6 months? Because the timeline on it.
right.
And that's me realizing what was important, realizing that I needed to get back. And I
Hmm.
think that for me was the wake up call. But if I hadn't taken that job, I would have never created a podcast. I had no
Right.
reason to even listen to a podcast. So without a doubt, that was it.
Yeah, I didn't really listen. That's the crazy thing. I didn't really listen to podcasts like that either. So that's why I know it was a divine setup because I just would be like, podcast. I don't listen to no podcast. All right.
Uh-huh.
So it says the second one, it says what to do if you lack spare time for your project. It says it is important to find balance between taking your project and work seriously, but also knowing when you're being too hard on yourself. And I think and I love that because I see people, and I said this a few weeks ago on my podcast, people, never not working, which I believe in that. And I said that then, but sometimes people be working themselves sick or they too hard on themselves. And then it's like, then you too hard on yourself, you're not gonna be able to really just push that good content like you want to because you this don't right, this ain't right. And it's just sometimes you just gotta let it go. Some of my best projects have been me just putting out stuff like, F it, let's see how it go, and then it'd be like it blow up. The third one says getting comfortable in the beginner's chair. There are benefits to clocking hours of practice, but there's also great benefits in being inexperienced, naive, and open-minded. So kind of touching on what you said earlier, like, people just need to get started. Um, do you feel as though, what do you feel as any like positives to being a beginner, I guess you could say?
Oh, the beginner, man, you don't know nothing. That means that for me, if I'm a beginner, I'm trying to mess up as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, as I get better at it, some of those rookie mistakes I just would never make again.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So like I think there's a huge advantage in being a beginner and being a learner because you're able to look back at stuff like, oh man, I came a long way. You got more things to be proud of, right? Like you
Right.
can go back to listen to your first episode and be like, oh wow, now I know how to take out the background noise. You know what I'm saying? So little small things like that, and also the curiosity level is high. You know,
Right.
as you become a true expert in any field, you got to be surrounded by other people who are true experts to keep challenging your mentality of wanting to grow and think better. Like you got to. Otherwise, you become stagnant, you fall off, you start feeling yourself. So that's what I would probably say, man. Beginning stages are the best stages. Figure out how can you be more curious
Mm-hmm.
and ask more questions.
Okay. All right, cool. The other one, it says know that momentum can change at any moment. That's self-explanatory. What we always planning on go as planned. Again, I'm a witness. Stuff that you plan, you think it's gonna go one way, and it didn't go how you expected. Sometimes be the best stuff that ever happened. And then the last one says you can be both undisciplined and consistent at the same time. And it was several examples of people who were not consistent, well, that were consistent but were undisciplined. And so that, I guess, kind of comes to the theory that if you being consistent or persistent outbeats lack of discipline, although you still need it. If you
Yeah.
still persistent and consistent, it's like, well,
It's that can't stop, won't stop. Diddy mentality, man.
nah, for real,
It's that
definitely.
can't stop.
We're gonna hashtag that. So are you a planner, huh? You're a pretty good planner, or you just kind of go with the flow? Because I've talked to a few people that do both, or one or the other.
Depending on what we're talking about. If we talking about money, yeah, I'm planning. We talking about we talking about how you do a couple of things or what the outlook is or what the guideline is, or how I want to prove we're planning. But if we're talking about I just want to kick it with you and be curious as possible and be a sponge and absorb, I don't. So like every interview I've ever done, I've never planned any of it. For me, I kind of feel like an artist that hops in a booth and just feels the vibe of the music because you never really know. So that there may be key points, right? There may be key
Right.
points that I might want to touch on this topic. If I'm interviewing, Matthew Knowles, I know he's Beyonce's dad. I know somebody gonna have some curiosity on Beyonce and Solange. They're gonna ask them about it. So how can I tap into it without irritating them a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
Or if I'm interviewing, a political figure, right? Like, or am I interviewing somebody that's a music artist? I'm at least find out what their top songs were. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? I'm interviewing people like Mims. I'm interviewing some huge names coming in the future. So like, I think it's important to know key points in
Mm-hmm.
that aspect, but it's okay to kind of go with the flow a little bit unless you're talking about things that can legitimately like cause damage on your life if you don't do right, like money
Right.
and finances.
Right. And yeah, I definitely agree with that. You have to research any guest that you have, and that's for anybody got a podcast, use whatever. Research your guests first. That way you ain't coming on there looking like, y'all just looking at each other talking about nothing, looking foolish. Because I didn't seen people do that, and I just be like, I feel I
It happens a
cringe
lot.
for
It happens a
them.
lot, man.
Yeah. All right. So moving to the next segment. So tips and scenarios for the college students. We kind of winding down the episode today. So my tips and scenarios for college students, as we both HBCU graduates, and I definitely speak to college students, but especially HBCU, whatever you're doing, get started. Just start. Um, I mean, that's all I can really say. Get started. Definitely don't get caught up in the opinions of other people, because especially going to the HBCU, it's gonna be a lot of people talking. Especially a bunch of black folks. It's just how I go. So it's gonna be a lot of people just talking, but don't let that derail you from what you called to do and what you want to do. Because if you're gonna fail, you can fail on your own. And especially when times like college, that's the time to fall. And it ain't gonna be pretty all the time. That's just how I go. And then, do you have any tips for the college students so that they maybe can say when they do listen to your podcast, they listening to it? It's called "So What Happens Now," but then they listening to it and then now in college, so that now they didn't took them tips and scenarios, and they didn't
Oh,
by the
wow.
time.
Yeah,
by the
you
time.
killing if you do that. Yeah, you killing if you do that. If you're in college listening to schools over now, what you already ahead of the game. I wish I was you, because that's the reason why the platform was created. Didn't exist. So if you're in school listening to it, man, you're about to really get off. But my advice to you, you know what I'm saying, if you are in college right now, is what can you get involved with right now that you know would say no to? And how can you introduce yourself and walk up to people and get more contacts and kind of be around them? Because what's going to happen is, as you get older, college is almost going to seem like high school was to you. There's somebody listening to this right now, when you look back at high school, you're like, yo, some of those relationships didn't even matter. Like, some of those people, man, if not 99% of those people, besides maybe two of my homeboys that'll probably be at my wedding, I don't even talk to. So, and at some point, for me and for you, for anybody listening to this, college may possibly well be very similar scenario as high school. So while you're still in college, network with people. You never know who you're in class with right now. That could be the next Kamala Harris, or could be the next, whoever that is. Like, you never know, right? Somebody that's sitting in the HBCU that got an aspiration that can get to the spot.
Right.
There's people right now that the reason I bring up Kamala Harris, people right now that I went to high school with, right? That are like her press secretary, I could have conversated, I could have been in that network, I could have slide on in, let me get that interview that'll drop,
Nah,
that'll
for real.
blow up. You know what I mean? So network with all those people while you're there, man, and don't take too many relationships serious. If you get in a relationship, you find the one, great, congrats. But if you're talking to somebody right now, you're a little iffy, you should probably be a little iffy. It ain't gonna work out. So stop sweating it and continue to just meet people, talk to people, figure out what people are capable of, and come together.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that wholeheartedly. It's all about networking, and this is the time to do it. Because, like he said, what if you was her best friend in college,
Oh,
and
you there?
you there, and then now she like, I remember you used to do this. I need you to come do this. You bankroll after
She would have done it. She would have
bankroll.
done it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
she would have done it, man. And
Oh,
win, lose, or draw. And then I know political topics can be crazy. Everybody got their own views, but at the end of the day, let's be honest, man. An African American woman is like a nominee of a serious election. That ain't never happened. You know what I mean? So, and then if you listen to this right now, there's somebody of culture, someone primarily of color. I mean, you gotta be honest. We know that person's gonna be attacked on all angles, but it's up to us to make sure, even if we like her or don't like her, we don't let her get disrespected. You know
right.
what I mean? So
And
that's
that's
what it
the
comes
thing
down to.
too. You might not agree with her, and even if you don't vote for her, you can't let them just clown her. You know what I'm saying?
Can't let them do it like that. At the end of the day, that could be your aunt, that could be your mom, that could be your best friend. Like, and this has never happened before. So
Right.
regardless if you don't believe what people, views are, just don't let them clown them, man. You
Yeah,
won't see it again. It'll be a while.
that's what I'm saying. All right. So now, thank you. We ending off with the last segment called Game Time. All right, it's a game thing I play with my guests, and it kind of gives I guess it's like the test at the end of the episode. So the name of the game is called Persistent or Pest. I'm gonna name you a few different scenarios, and you're gonna tell me like, okay, that person is persistent. I like what they're doing, or they doing too much. That ain't it. That ain't it. All right.
All right, cool. Let's get it.
All right, so it says this person reaches out through DM to a person with a big following to collab. Are they persistent or a pest?
Persistent.
All right. It says this person likes 3 pictures of a person they are trying to pursue. Are they persistent or a pest?
Persistent.
All right. It says this person passes out their mixtape to the clubbers at the end of the club. Everybody that they
Persistent.
see. You said persistent?
Persistent.
All right. This person calls a girl he just met nonstops and triple texts her, and she hasn't responded once. Is he persistent or a pest?
He might be a little pest.
All right. You going to the office at your apartment complex, knocking down doors, blowing up emails because your toilet's overflowing and they not responding. Are you persistent or a pest?
Oh, we persistent. We tearing this place up.
You a pest, but it's a good pest. That's so it is persistent for
Yeah,
sure.
I'm a persistent pest.
Right. All right. The last one, it says you keep picking at the zits on your face, leaving marks because you won't follow the proper steps to get your face healed. Are you a persistent or you pest?
That's persistent. Get them off. That's a bad situation. I haven't had too many acne problems. I've been blessed.
Man, I did too, man. I've been I've been blessed lately because it's been like nothing. All right. So, in the remarks, again, it comes from one of the sources earlier. It said from Spiritual Living or Busy People, it says that you need to anticipate the dip. And so that basically and there's gonna be times you feel uninspired. And anticipate the dip means it's
Yeah.
gonna be tired where you might have a little decline or something. But then you feel inspired, there's gonna be days you feel uninspired. That's just how I go. So any end of remarks before you go?
Yeah, man. So, real quick with the dip, man, the best book ever with the dip is Seth Godin, The Dip. I've had him on my podcast. Guy's a legend, but you got to figure out in life what dips are really worth it. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Like, are you pursuing something that's worth a small decline to have a big win?
Right.
Or are you pursuing something that you just need to stop? Right. Like, so I think that's what it comes down to. And if you struggle with that, definitely grab my guy's book. He's a GOAT. Also, too, you can catch him on the podcast. Goes over now what. But if you want to listen to anything we got going on, we are on every audio platform. We come out each and every single Friday. School's over now what. You can follow me on Instagram at Shawn R Anthony _ and pretty much everywhere with that username. So I appreciate you guys and you guys listening. Just always remember, dream it, believe it, go out and get it.
All right, cool. We ending off with the question or challenge for my audience today. Remember, participate in the question or challenge so that you can get the gift cards and things I have for y'all. I want you to set 3 to 5 goals for the week that you eventually lead to your success in your respective industry. And then I want you to tell me what they are. You can either DM it to me so I can post it, or you can post it in your story and tag me and the P.S.A page. All right. So shout out to my boy, Shawn R. Anthony, for pulling up on me via Zoom. P.S.A signing out. Always remember, keep your head up like your neck hurt. Remember who you are and make your mind up. Don't let it make you.